Welcome to episode 11 of the Find Me in Seattle podcast. And actually, you there on YouTube, I'm not recording in the mic. I recorded the podcast already and I forgot to turn on the camera. So I missed like the first 10 minutes of the show. I super duper apologize. Forgive me on that one. But what you missed before we jump into the rest of the clips here, I'll tell you about some of the topics. Check out on the audio podcast if you want to go listen, but I talk about the strike at Swedish Hospital, closing down all the ERs, at least the ER in Redmond and Ballard, and yeah, you don't really want to go to the emergency room when it's not open. Don't get injured before Friday of this week. I also talked about voting on our phones. In this next election here in King County, we're going to be allowed to vote on our phones, and I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared about that, and so there in the audio, I talk a little bit about why I don't think this is going to get more people to vote with their phones, because I don't think the difficulty of voting is filling out the bubble and dropping it in the mailbox. It's actually about doing the research and finding out about candidates and topics and legislation so you can make an informed decision. And so that's the part that's really the bottleneck keeping people from voting. And then I made a Super Bowl prediction. I'm going with the Chiefs, more or less because in Seattle we don't root for the 49ers. And then I talked about Phoenix Jones, which I think right now you're going to get into Phoenix Jones. So thanks for always watching me here on YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button if you're listening to this now. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm sorry I messed this up. I'm still learning, getting better at it. And thanks for following me. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all your engagement here on YouTube. I'm super grateful for 2020 and you watching. Enjoy part 2 of the podcast. I'm just, knock on wood, happy that I didn't have an emergency. And when I saw this on Monday, I even said it out loud. I was like, don't go to the emergency room. Don't put yourself in a situation that you got to go to the emergency room this week, because it's a little dangerous. And the one in Redmond and Ballard, and the Ballard one's the closest one to me, is not going to be open. So let's not take that risk and avoid any of those situations, because that could be terrible. But I'll give a big shout out to all the employees there at Swedish. I don't know, I'm not researched well enough to know what's going on, but just off the basic thing, if they're out there striking, I assume it's for good reason on this one. And let's get them the things that they need to do their job better, because when we have emergencies, we need the best people out there who are taken care of and feel secure to do that job well. All right, so from medical emergencies, I need to talk about this article that came out, and I'm referencing a Como News article here. And here's the headline, and I'll get into some background. Real-life superhero Phoenix Jones in super trouble facing drug charges. So early on, I think I moved to Seattle in 2011. And those first couple years, especially, the peak was in 2013. Phoenix Jones was this vigilante superhero, right? It was like he was like Batman here in Seattle. And I saw him a couple times up in Capitol Hill and Belltown, and he would roam the streets in his superhero costume and he would defend the public, right? He'd break up fights. He got in a few fights, and he was also an MMA fighter for a while. And so buff, strong guy, he had weapons, and then he had like a whole contingent of other superheroes that went out with them, and it was like this Cape Crusader here in Seattle trying to protect the innocent. I know he ran around with what they're saying here is a net gun, and he might have had a taser. I'm not sure. I can't promise that he actually had one of those. But the tables have turned, and I'm thinking of that Batman quote. It's like, you live long enough to become the villain. And so let me see what his name is here. I know it's Fedor is his last name, but his first name is Benjamin John Fedor. And so he's notorious, the Seattle superhero. Check him up on YouTube. They had some great promos of him. He even had an arch nemesis who made this video. I don't think he was actually a bad guy, but it was just like a really cool hype thing. And so he gets caught in a sting that revealed that he sold MDMA, or what's known as Molly, to an undercover narcotics detective on November 21st at the Starbucks at 999 3rd Avenue. And so prior to the encounter, the undercover detective sent Fedor $300 in Venmo. And then he accepted an additional $200 in person and agreed to sell more Molly to the detective at a later date. And so they said Fedor handed the agent a brown paper bag, which had several purple powder substances in several dark-colored bags. Each substance tested positive for MDMA, and it was about 7.1 grams. And then a week later, the undercover officer reached out to Fedor again for another shipment, and it took more than a month for the detectives to arrange another deal, but eventually they caught him. They arrested him at the Silver Cloud Hotel for a party, and yeah, I honestly couldn't believe this article when I saw it. It was a big shock to me because it's just like, it sounds like a movie, right? We have this Cape Crusader who wears a mask, who fights for the innocent and protects crime, and he wasn't very much encouraged by the police at that time. People were not, there was certain people who were not happy that he was out doing this, but I thought it was really cool. I mean, when I saw him, I thought it was like when I saw him out in Belltown one time, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, look at Phoenix Jones, there he is, out there, standing up for the citizens and protecting all of us. And to see now that he is selling Molly and he got arrested for selling drugs on a street, I mean, in a city where I can't imagine it was just really bad timing for him, because I think we've actually been pretty lenient on drugs here in the city for the past at least couple of years, and with all the stuff in the news that happened last week, he could be in for a rough time when that happens. And so he was booked in the King County Jail on January 10th for violating the violation of the Uniform Controlled Substance Act. And yeah, it's real sad. Real sad to see someone who kind of like stood up for justice and was a symbol. I mean, I feel like I'm talking about Batman right now, but he was. And to see him run into the law and get into this position, it's really sad. Really sad. So I hope for the best. I hope Phoenix Jones can figure it out, whatever he's got going on, and get back on a straight course. We miss you, Phoenix Jones. We hope you can figure your stuff out here in this situation. All right, that concludes the Seattle news lineup here this week. Before we get into my food stuff, let's talk about the Super Bowl. Just really quick, I'm going to listen to the Super Bowl for the first time on car radio this weekend because, like I said last week with my family stuff, I decided I'm going to go and visit them in North Idaho for pretty much a day. It's like a 6-hour drive back on Sunday for me. And so I think I'm just going to listen to it on the radio. I'm hoping for the Chiefs to win. Everyone here in Seattle that, at least as a Seahawks fan, is definitely not rooting for the 49ers because of that rivalry. I know there's a bunch of 49er fans that might even be you out there listening. Good luck if you are, whoever you're rooting for. I don't have very much skin in the game. I don't even really care all that much if the 49ers win. It's no skin off my back. But it should be exciting. Both teams are real good and electric, should we say. So that should be fun. But I'm taking the Chiefs to win 32-28. There's my pick. All right, let's get into some more stories that I got. This week's featured meal of the week comes from a Cantonese restaurant in South Seattle, down in SeaTac, and it's called Yum Yum Cafe. I'll let you into a little story because it was a very interesting situation on why I got why I went there and how this whole thing went. So, and I get a message from a friend that I know through Instagram who's had me promote other businesses before, and she's like, hey, do you want to come to Yum Yum Cafe on this date for a tasting, right? And usually when I get asked for a tasting, it's like, oh, we're inviting a bunch of influencers to come. We're going to prepare all this food. Everyone's going to be taking pictures, and you're going to eat the food, and then you can promote the business at the end. And I was like, cool, let's do it. Ended up being in SeaTac, and simultaneously, it worked out really well because I had to drop off my future sister-in-law at the airport at like the same time. But her and Amanda had to come with me to the dinner. And usually that's totally cool. They're friends with all the influencers and everything. So I don't really know what to expect going to Yum Yum Cafe. And I couldn't find a ton of information. They didn't have an Instagram account. And I get there, and it's relatively empty. It's on like the side of not a very busy street. And all of the everything on all the walls is all in Cantonese. I can't read any of it. And I look to my right, and there's a group of people gathering. And what it turns, it was a promotional, like, don't get me wrong. And they were doing it to take pictures for I believe, a Chinese specific magazine. But we get there, and everyone else that was there is all speaking Cantonese towards each other. And so me and Amanda and Jordan were all just very surprised on what the situation was in the environment and who was there. It's very different than a lot of the other influencer events that I go to. But I think it added all to the authenticity and the uniqueness of this dining experience. So we sit down, everyone's talking, trying to get to know each other. And the big thing that they brought out was this hot pot. And it's got a giant crab on top of it. So I'm very excited to eat it. It looks delicious. But the crab's kind of like still that blue color. It's clearly not cooked. And he brings out this bottle of Budweiser. And he pours the Budweiser all over the crab into the hot pot. And he goes, "We don't have a liquor license. We don't sell alcohol here. This Budweiser is exclusively here just for cooking." Poured an entire bottle of Budweiser into the hot pot, covers it up. It's like 10, 15 minutes later, he opens up the lid, and the crab is now that, like, what you think crab is, that like orangish red color, bright, vibrant. It's got our face looking at it. They had shrimp and clams and pretty much an entire chicken. And it was, I can't remember the name, but it was a full chicken. There was a chicken head in the soup, which was just a wild, wild experience. They also had a bunch of other, what they call like traditional local Cantonese food there, things that the chef said he ate as a child, things in the house growing up in the Canton province of China. And yeah, it was just a wild, wild meal to have. And but that's exactly why I love doing this job. I get to experience these really unique places. I would have never ever gone to Yum Yum Cafe in SeaTac, but I got that invite, and it was a very unique experience. It was a meal that I never would have had. I couldn't read the menu. The people who were there thankfully did a lot of the ordering and the translating when it came to talking about the dishes and what we were eating. It was quite an experience, and I had a great time. It was so fun. And yeah, probably a meal that I won't forget, because it was just so shocking to walk in there and only see Cantonese on all of the sides, not knowing what the menu said, and then having this beer poured over the crab, and then having a full chicken, including the chicken head, in the hot pot. It was just a wild meal. But if you're looking for something interesting, or you're into Cantonese food, check them out, Yum Yum Cafe. They are my meal of the week. The next, I got my featured business of the week. And this week, I want to highlight a place that I don't think really gets talked about, especially in the food influencer scene, but it's not food necessarily. My featured business of the week this week is the bingo hall at Tulalip Casino. Now, this has become a favorite place for me and Amanda to venture out to, specifically here in the wintertime. We haven't had an official sunny day here in Seattle since November 30th. So when it's cold and wet and rainy, not as much going on. Amanda and I like to take a Saturday or Sunday. We drive up to Tulalip, right, which takes maybe 30 to 45 minutes to drive to. And they have bingo. And bingo is $8 for a full card. And that provides you pretty much 3 hours of entertainment. And if you win, you split the pot with anyone else who also calls bingo at that time. But the pot of every game is $400, and I think you get to play maybe 16 games over the course of 3 hours. So there's lots of opportunities. Amanda and I, over the years, we've probably played, we've probably done this 20 times, and we've each won once. So we're probably about break even for the amount of money that we spent going all these times. But it's such a fun form of entertainment. It's an interesting environment to go to. We're usually the youngest people there, and it's just silly and fun, and we laugh and enjoy our time. We usually bring food. They've also got a food counter there. If you're into slot machines, it's disconnected from the casino, but they do have some slot machines there. You can always run over to the casino across the street if you want to get your gamble on over there. But I just want to give a shout out to the bingo hall at Tulalip Casino because it's just provided so much fun, relatively inexpensive entertainment for me, and I highly encourage if you're like, hey, we need to go do something, go outside, I highly recommend. They've got, I think the sessions are at 11, 2, and 5 o'clock or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 1, 4, and 7. I have no clue. Google it. And yeah, go play some bingo. It's only $8 for a single card. You'll have a ton of fun. It's real enjoyable. Thanks a lot, bingo. You are my featured business of the week. All right, I got a couple more minutes. I want to take an extra take here at the end of the show for any of you still listening, because some leaked news came out this week about the possible NHL Seattle team, and there's a lot of chatter that the name is going to be the Seattle Kraken. Some people are pissed. Some people are super excited. A bunch of people want Seattle Freeze. Some other people want the Seattle Metropolitans, because the Seattle Metropolitans actually won, I believe, the first Stanley Cup ever. So they think there's some history there. And it's really interesting. Here in Seattle, we've got this like nostalgia with names. I've always wondered, if the basketball team comes back, why would they name them the Supersonics? There's such a financial opportunity for them to resell new jerseys and clothes and swag and all those things if they rename it, rebrand it. And obviously everyone here wants the Sonics back, and I can't really imagine that they change it from the Seattle Sonics if and when basketball does come back. But to the NHL, Metropolitans don't really excite me. I think there's actually even a division called the Metropolitan Division, which might be a little confusing. But I'm kind of down with the Seattle Krakens. I think that's a marketable character, an interesting, fictitious, let's call it an animal. And yeah, I think there's just like a lot of play on words that they can go with there, kind of breaking through the ice. The Seattle Freeze, just not, it's like too like, almost too real. Right? Like, I don't really like embracing the whole Seattle Freeze thing anyways. And I've got a whole rant about the Seattle Freeze that will be coming at some point this year. But I'm all on board for Seattle Kraken. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know. Shoot me a message. Shoot me a tweet. Hit me up in the DMs on Instagram. Call in here on Anchor if you're listening on Anchor, or comment there on YouTube. Let me know. What do you think about the Seattle Kraken being the name? I'm personally for it. I like it. I'm so excited for the NHL to come here and launch. I think it's going to bring a unique vibrance. I mean, as you know, I'm a huge Sounders fan, and there's such a unique niche, but also high profile culture around there. I think hockey's going to be the same thing. I think people are really going to get behind it, and it's going to be fun. So when they launch next year, I'm really hoping that I'll be there with a maybe Kraken jersey. Maybe I can get Find Me in Seattle there on the back of the jersey. I'm hoping I can go attend that first game, because I think that'll be a monumental event. Hopefully I can get my camera, get my phone in, and make a little vlog about the first ever. Is it technically the first ever? I mean, it's the new NHL hockey team. I think that'll be really exciting. I'm just really excited about everything that's going to happen here with the NHL. Chalk me up as a fan already. I didn't buy season tickets, but that's because I got Sounders season tickets. I'm not kind of committed to seats in one team financially. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you think about the Seattle Kraken. I'd love to find out about what you think, because I'm excited for it, but I know a lot of other people aren't. And if you got other suggestions on name, leave a comment. Let me know what you think on the names. Well, that concludes episode 11 of the Find Me in Seattle podcast. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm really enjoying doing the show. I'm nervous and kind of scared every time I'm setting up my camera, plugging in the microphone. Last week I actually forgot to plug in the microphone. This week I turned out my camera late, so I missed probably half the episode. But yeah, I just am really enjoying this. I'm excited on where it's going to go and how it can evolve. But every time I'm done doing the show, I've always got this like smile on my face. So thanks for listening to me, putting up with me for 25 minutes here in your ears. Thanks for listening. Make sure to leave a review, give me a thumbs up, like the post, wherever you're seeing this, however you're engaging with it. All of your engagement is really the fuel to this Find Me in Seattle thing. It's the best thing that you can do to support me and all of this creative work that I'm doing. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day, and we will see you next week for the next episode of the Find Me in Seattle podcast. See ya.